Good evening, ladies, and welcome to Reboot TV. This is Tuesday Talks. I'm your host, Sheila Kilty from the Optimal Health Reboot and the Mind-Body Reboot Method. Tonight's topic is intermittent fasting, everything you'd ever want to know and then some. Hello, Miss Irma. Irma's here joining me. She's going to be live with me today, and we're going to be hiding everybody when we jump over to the presentation, but welcome this evening and thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.
You too, hon. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, ladies. We're going to head over and questions will be at the end. There'll be a slide that says questions and then I'll pop out. We'll come back to Zoom view. I had a few other ladies that said they're going to be late jumping on. And again, if you're watching this in replay, just leave your questions in the comments on Facebook and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. All right, let's get started. Tonight's topic, as I said, is intermittent fasting, and we're going to be talking about what it is, what it isn't, and what it could be for you for a lifetime of metabolic health and cognitive improvement. So thanks for joining me tonight. Like I said, we're talking about what it is, what it isn't, what are the health benefits for your brain, what are the health benefits for your body, what are the life benefits? What are the things that you gain from it just by doing it? And how does it affect weight loss and metabolic health in general? And how do you get started? So just to get it out of the way, first, a quick disclaimer. This presentation is not to be construed as medical advice or a treatment plan and is intended for general education purposes only. The information in this presentation is not to be used for self-diagnosis or self-treatment of any health, medical, or physical condition. Don't use the information in this presentation to avoid going to your own healthcare professional or to replace the advice they give you. Consult with your healthcare professional before implementing anything related to the presented materials herein. Myself, Sheila Kilty, the Mind-Body Reboot Method, and the Optimal Health Reboot make no representations about the accuracy or suitability of this content for you. All right, got that out of the way. Let's get started. So first up, IF. When you see that, that means intermittent fasting throughout the presentation, but intermittent fasting. Let's first take a look at what it isn't. There's a lot of misconceptions about it. It is not starving yourself. That's the number one question that I get from doctors and non-doctors alike. Why are you starving yourself? And it is not starving yourself. It's not what it is. And it's not just skipping meals. If you miss some meals along the way, you're not intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting has to do with intention that it's part of your plan. It's not just, oh, geez, I forgot to eat lunch. And it's not a means of calorie restriction. You're not skipping meals to make it intermittent fasting so that your calories can be less, because anybody who knows me 5 minutes knows that calories are a bunch of hooey. They matter on some scientific level, but in terms of losing weight permanently, they're a bunch of hooey. So this is not just about calorie restriction. And people think it's dangerous for your body. Now, with a few exceptions, those exceptions being people who've had eating disorders, people who are too thin and their BMI is the low end of healthy or is into the way too thin or extremely thin ranges. And people who do not get clearance from their doctors. If they have metabolic disorders and things where their doctors feel this is not okay for them, obviously that's not okay for them. But for the rest of us, for the other 99.999% of us, this is fine. And what it doesn't do, okay, this is the number one you're going to hear, mostly from doctors. This is surprising. This came from discussions with doctors and from talking to different people in the medical fields, but fasting's going to make you sick. Fasting's going to make me sick. It's actually quite the opposite. We're going to talk about autophagy and the benefits, the super healthful benefits that you get from fasting. Fasting's going to cause your blood sugar to crash. Well, that's not true because of gluconeogenesis, which basically means making new sugar. in your body. Your body can make the sugar it needs. You need only 30 grams of glucose in your body any given day. And if you're not taking it in exogenously, if you're not putting them into, if you're not consuming glucose, your liver will make it for you and provide your brain and anything else, everything that you'll need. It's pretty amazing vehicle that we're driving here, our bodies. And anecdotally, I can tell you that I had severe diabetes with something called reactive hypoglycemia, which means as soon as my blood sugars went up, even to like 200, I would crash way down to like 40. It was extreme. I was carrying all kinds of sugary foods around me at all times. My pockets were jammed full of Werther's, butterscotch. I got to the point where I couldn't even stand the taste of butterscotch, which is insane because I've loved it my whole life. But I would crash all the time. And I was terrified to have these big blood sugar crashes because you've been told by the conventional wisdom that's out there that if you don't carry snacks around with you and eat all the time, your blood sugar is going to bottom out, especially if you have diabetes. Now, that might be true if you're not taking the right levels of metformin and other diabetic control medications. If you're taking too much, your blood sugar is going to drop very easily. But, it has not happened for me once. In the 2.5 years I've been practicing intermittent fasting, I have not had one blood sugar crash. Also, I have a friend who shall remain nameless for the purposes of this presentation, who weekly was going to the doctor, to the emergency room, these horrible blood sugar events that she was having where they were crashing very low. As soon as she started intermittent fasting, and she said, I can try it. Well, if I crash, I crash, I'll stop. She has gone since January of this year on intermittent fasting, has not had not one time that she has had to stop or put candy in her mouth. She hasn't crashed once. Also, that fasting is going to slow down your metabolism. So not even in 3 straight days of extended fasting, which is what EF is. So even if you go 3 straight days on a water fast, you are not going to slow down your metabolism. It's not going to happen. You'll die of hunger. That's another one. You're going to die of hunger. You can only go 3 days without food. Well, that's not true, because if it was true, then you would die in the middle of the night from not eating before breakfast. We're not going to die if we don't eat. We have enough calories on our bodies as Americans, have an average of 10, like, I don't even know the numbers, like 10 million excess calories in fat, whatever the number of millions of calories of fat that we have stored on our body that can be turned into ketones, into energy, and feed us, is phenomenal. We have lots of excess fat. And as a matter of fact, the Guinness Book of World Records for how long you can go on a water fast, water, not broth, not other things going on, but a water fast that was absolutely monitored by his physicians. But there was a gentleman named Jerome, I forget his last name. He went 367 days and dropped almost 300 pounds in a year and a few days doing a water fast, and has kept it off, because the adipose tissue you drop while you're on a fast in general will be gone because it's burned up. It's gone. It's not deflated, and all the inflammation's gone out of it, and the water has left it, and it's water weight. These are fat cells that have been eliminated through ketones. We'll get into that, but nope, you are not going to die of hunger. So let's talk about what intermittent fasting is, okay? Here's what it is. It's intermittent. It is not constant. We're talking about intermittent, not extended fasts. That's a whole other cup of coffee. That's a whole other presentation that we're going to do. Intermittent fasting is just that. It is timed eating schedules with an eating window and a fasting window. So they're called things like 18-6, and it looked like 18:6, or 16-8, or 20-4, or a 24-hour window, also known as an OMAD, which is a 1 meal a day. And what that is that first number is how long you're fasting, and the second number is how long your eating window is. So on an 18-6, you would fast for 18 hours, which is basically skipping breakfast. Then you eat a later lunch. You wait 4 hours between the last bit of food and your next bite that you have, so that you give your body a break with the amount of insulin you're producing and your insulin resistance going down. So that 4-hour break in between, you have your next meal. There you go, all done. So when you get up in the morning, last bite of food says it's 7 o'clock the night before. When you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's already 12 hours. And 6 hours later is 1 in the afternoon, boom, 18 hours. And that's how long you have to go before autophagy kicks in. We'll get into that. But the 18-6 is the most standard window of eating that there is. But it's not starving yourself. You are timing your eating. It is an intentional scheduling a fasting window and an eating window to give your body an insulin break. It's an ancient form of clearing out your body and healing. In fact, every single religion in the world has fasting in some way is the center of some kind of purification or holiday ritual. In Christianity, there's Lent. In Judaism, there's Yom Kippur. In Islam, there's Ramadan. In Buddhism, there's Bhagwan Jai. Please forgive any of my pronunciations. And in Hinduism, Maha Srivrati. So there's another thing that's very interesting. In Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Judaism, there is a 40 days, 40 nights thing. There is this cycle of 40 days and 40 nights to purify and clean your body. Moses went into the desert. Jesus went into the desert. Muhammad had some fasting that he did. Buddha was constantly fasting and doing things. And it's a form of purifying your soul and your mind and your body for spiritual reasons. This has been around for millennia upon millennia. This is what people did. So let's talk about the benefits there are for the body. Okay, we'll start there. Let's see, what does it do for your body? So here's a little graphic that shows you some basics. So when you're intermittent fasting for that window, that 18-6, whatever it is, so it increases your insulin and leptin sensitivity. Leptin is the hormone that tells you that you're full. Stop eating, put down the fork. Oosh, I'm full. That's the chemical that kicks in and tells you that. It reduces the risk of chronic disease, from diabetes to heart disease, even cancer. Ghrelin, which tells you you're hungry, goes down. And the ability to become fat adapted. We'll talk about fat adaptation and what that is, which increases your energy by burning stored fat. It decreases triglyceride levels, decreasing your risk of heart disease, decreases inflammation, free radical damage, decreases weight gain and metabolic disease risk. So if you're diabetic and you start doing intermittent fasting, your A1C comes down, your body having that break, that 18-hour window, and then the 4 hours in between meals gives your body some time to chill and not have insulin going all the time. Because whether you're putting a bite into your mouth or an entire table of food into your mouth, your body is going to release insulin, period. So if you have, I hear it all, I just had a bite. It was just a bite. Well, there goes some insulin out, spraying insulin into your body, and then you're dealing with insulin, and then insulin sets off all these other hormonal things. It creates a storm. It's a chemistry experiment. Increases ketones, increases adiponectin levels, cortisol and ghrelin levels, lowers glucose, insulin, IGF-1, leptin, triglycerides. I mean, we covered some of these, but in your liver, it helps your liver. And the biggest one, the glycogen production, which is the stored sugar that you can, big stores of sugar that you need to burn off when you're exercising. It looks for the glucogen to burn off, but it also decreases your liver size. When you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or alcoholic fatty liver disease, your liver swells up big. And during just practicing that 18-6, your liver is going to get so healthy, be able to process everything, develop ketones for you, express all of that, get you into fat adaptation. It's an amazing process that there is. The intestines get a break. They also are involved in producing ketone bodies. You increase your insulin sensitivity, your structure and function, your bones don't lose as much calcium when you're intermittent fasting. In your brain, all kinds of cognitive function, stress resistance, lower of inflammation in your brain, lower of oxidative stress. For your heart, for your cardiovascular system, your resting heart rate goes down, your blood pressure goes down. I've had clients that had to get off high blood pressure medications. In addition to diabetes medications, I had to get off diabetes medications myself. Your pancreas gets a lot happier. Adipose tissues, by the way, is fat tissue. And all of the things that happen, the fat mass, the inflammation, adiponectin, insulin sensitivity, everything calms down and starts functioning the way it's supposed to, because we're flooding our bodies and our brains full of all kinds of insulin producing foods all the time. And to give it a break allows your body to regenerate, relax, and get back to doing what it's supposed to be doing. So the overall health benefits, we've talked a lot about it, but here's a pretty comprehensive list. I'm not going to go through and read every one of those. You can read, but I love like clearing up your skin, regulating your hormones, including the things for menopause and menses that we all go through as gals, but also for men, it helps them build up their testosterone levels that get depleted when they're trying to deal with this big old inflamed obese body. You also develop a healthier relationship with food. If you're not putting food in your mouth and being told you have to eat 6 times a day. So Americans put food in their mouth a lot. We're told a lot to snack, carry nuts around with us, have snack foods of all time. Remember, we're going to die if we don't eat, we're going to die. So here is a great experiment. If you don't think, if you're not one of my clients and you're on the program and you already know the answer to this, you only eat twice a day, you're not snacking. But for everybody else that's listening to this later on, I have a great experiment for you to do. Get a piece of paper and a pen, put it in your pocket or a little notebook you can keep with you or in your purse or whatever, and keep it with you all day. And for every time you take a sip or a bite of something that has some kind of calories, that would include coffee that's loaded up with sugar and creamer and all kinds of stuff. Anytime you put calories in your body that your body has to deal with and digest, put a hash mark, just like a little number 1, kind of just a hash mark in there. Count up how many times you put a bite into your mouth. And that's how many times your body has to spray out the insulin out of your pancreas to release insulin to help you digest that food. And you wonder why we're swimming in insulin. And then the crime of giving diabetics even more insulin to put in their body because their blood sugar is out of control. Their blood sugar is not out of control because you're not making enough insulin. You're making too much insulin and your body's just like, enough, I don't need it. And so it's not absorbing it. But if we keep pummeling it with insulin, it's going to bring the sugar down. But that's what we're doing to people. So make that little hashtag, little hash mark. Well, I did this exercise for myself a couple of years ago. I was like, I don't think I'm eating all that much. I had 22 hash marks on that piece of paper. The couple bites of food you put in your mouth when you're making your kids' lunch, the couple bites you have when you're putting food away, when you're making somebody breakfast and you have a bite of their pancakes, then you have your own pancakes. Then when you're cleaning up for the pancakes, maybe you got a couple more bites you do. Then there's the 3 or 4 different coffee breaks where you just have that one cookie from the kitchen at work that, Louise brings toffee with her or whatever, and you stop by Louise or she has little Hershey's Kisses. You just had one Hershey's Kiss, not a big deal. Well, 22 times a day, I was bombarding my body. So do that experiment. You just don't even think about it. Just put a little hash mark, just like keep count. You will be shocked at how many times in one day you put food in your mouth. But it helps with that. Strengthens your immune system. When your cells go to regenerate, they're nice and clean. Your DNA repair is great. It greatly reduces the risk of breast cancer, which is phenomenal. Decreases your resting heart rate, we talked about, your blood sugar levels. So there are unbelievable benefits to intermittent fasting. So I loved this picture. So autophagy, as I said, means self-eating. And it means your cells are constantly becoming damaged as a normal part of the metabolic process. So as your cells are duplicating, you have junk cells that get tossed off to the side, or something gets used up, or something gets damaged, or something's oxidated, and you have these excess bad cells. Well, as we age, we experience stress and all kinds of things. We deal with more and more free radical damage, and our cells become damaged at an increased rate. Well, autophagy clears away that cell waste. It goes through like a little Pac-Man, and it eats and eats and eats away all that cell waste. And it clears away all the damaged cells that can trigger inflammatory problems and contributes to diseases, including cancer. Because what cancer is an overgrowth of bad cells. Think about it. This is amazing. There are a lot of places on the planet where they use fasting and intermittent fasting to help treat people who are post-chemotherapy, to help them clean up the remnant cancer cells in their body. And when you take chemo or you take one of those biologics for your autoimmune disease, you have a lot of damaged cells in your body that you don't want them to duplicate. You want the good cells to duplicate. So that's what autophagy helps you with. So the gut rest that I was talking about, that gut repair, is rest and digest. So that's having a eating window, usually an hour, in that 18-6. So at 1 o'clock, you would have lunch, and then you're done with lunch by, say, 2 o'clock, round it up for completely done. And then you can't put the next first bite of food into your mouth, even while you're cooking, even while not anything passes your lips with a calorie included with it until 6 p.m. Then you eat for an hour and you stop eating at a certain time, and that starts the 18-hour clock again. You see how that works? But what it does is improves the gut microbiome. So all those pre and probiotics and everything that people talk about, if you practice intermittent fasting, there is no need to take all the pre and probiotics. Most of them, first of all, are very expensive. You have to take billions of IUs, international units, of a probiotic for it to survive any part of it past your stomach acid and your small intestine and to get into your digestive tract. Forget eating yogurt like that's some big, I'm going to put probiotics into my body. Well, yogurt's great because it is a fermented product, and those are very good for you for a whole other reason than intermittent fasting, of course. But the gut microbiome can maintain itself, and you can fix leaky gut. So when the gut lining needs repair, it needs to decrease inflammation, which you can do by giving it a rest and digest period. This greatly helps also irritable bowel. If anybody has IBS or IBD, this would help tremendously. So let's talk about the benefits for your brain and your mind. So here's some recent studies that are going on about regular fasting and autophagy. By regular fasting, I don't mean like regular and irregular. I'm talking about on a regular basis, you're doing some kind of intermittent fasting. So you live a life of 18-6 or OMADs or every other day or alternate day. So you have a pattern that you follow in your intermittent fasting. Now, if you want to get going with intermittent fasting and it's not something you've felt like you can implement, or you're gun shy on how to do that, if you are a client of mine, we're working to get you fat adapted, to get you to where you can do intermittent fasting and have it be, not an issue and be very easy progression for you. If you are not a client and you're listening to this, please, there's a way at the end to contact me, and we'll see if intermittent fasting would be right for you. So in terms of what it does for your brain, it's shown a connection to neurotropic responses, serotonin and dopamine balance, improving your memory, executive function levels, overall cognition. It's shown to preserve learning and memory function. At Johns Hopkins University, they have a study going right now trying to prove the positive effects on Alzheimer's. That was the study there before. And improvements in healing once you have Alzheimer's. Can it be reversed or just stopped? And I think that is just so exciting. So when you're doing metabolic switching and the effects of the ketones on the brain and cognitive function, what I mean by that is when you're switching from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner. So once you're fat adapted and you're using ketones as your primary source of energy in your body, this is what the ketones do on the brain and cognitive function. So it allows the body time to first process all the glucose in the liver stored as glycogen, and then it processes the fatty acids and ketone bodies. So your liver, with help from your intestines, produces ketones from fat. So it takes your fat stores, turn it into ketones, then you burn that instead of glucose. And it's a much more efficient form of fuel. Glucose is literally like a can of gasoline that you're throwing on the fire, and it burns up and explodes and burns really quickly. So when you have that going on and it, burns really quickly, as soon as you're done, you want to have more glucose right away. And that's when you get hangry and you get hangry, hungry, hangry, and you want more glucose. You're a sugar craver. You want carbs, and your body craves carbs. When you are a fat burner and you're fat adapted and you're a ketone burner, it's not just a fuel for the body. Ketones are amazing. So they have a great deal of influence on brain health and aging. They fuel our brains and create enhanced thinking, memory, and learning. They deal with brain injury and memory. Psychological disorders and much more get treated. Anxiety, stress, sleep disorders, any kind of psychological disorder you can think of in some way has been proven to have improvements while intermittent fasting and creating ketones from fat adaptation. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. So what to expect? Like, okay, I'm going to do some intermittent fasting. So what kind of results can I expect? So this is from the Fasting Lane and the Complete Guide to Fasting. This is what happens in the course of a fast. So if you follow it along, the top line, 48 hours, then 12 hours, then 16 hours, 18 hours. So as you're going through and you're fasting, in the first 4 to 8 hours since you ate your last bite, your blood sugar falls, all the food's left your stomach, and insulin is no longer being produced in that 4 to 8 hours. When you hit 12 hours, so you wake up the next morning, right? All the food consumed has been burned. Your digestive system goes to sleep, and your body begins that healing process. Your human growth hormone begins to increase. Glucagon is released out of the liver. It's released back out and burned. Any kind of stored sugars are burned. And that's done to balance your blood sugars. That's that dawn effect that people talk about. So if you wake up in the morning and you test your blood sugar, it's like, it's high. Give it an hour and see, because you might have a lot of stored sugar in your body from what you ate the night before, or from what's left over for different sugar stores in your body, and or from too much protein that you ate, which is stored as glucagon. So in the morning, when you get up, if you don't have enough sugar, your body, that is called dawn effect. So it's part of that circadian rhythm. It's going to give you enough sugar to get your buns out of bed in the morning. You get going with your day. The body is amazing. So at 16 hours, your body is ramping up fat burning. It's not quite doing fat burning yet, but it's getting there. At 18 hours, your human growth hormone starts to skyrocket. It goes nuts. It starts really elevating. We're going to talk about that in a minute. At 24 hours, so if you're doing an OMAD, for instance, at 18 hours, one of the things that's not on this chart, but what kicks in is that's when autophagy really starts happening, is at 18 hours. By 24 hours, so it's been a whole day since you've eaten, your autophagy, it not only begins, but your autophagy is in high action mode. All the glycogen in your body has been burned off in your liver. Your ketone stores have been released. The fat's been pulled off the shelf, been turned into ketones, off it goes, and it's out into the bloodstream. If you go 36 hours, so you wait till the next morning before you eat, your autophagy has gone up 300%. Now, if you're on an extended fast and you're going to 48 hours, this just spells out a little bit further. Your autophagy increases 30 more immune system reset, and regeneration increased with a reduction in the inflammatory response. So that's just say 30x. So the autophagy has gone up 30 times, so 3,000%. And at 72 hours, autophagy is maxed out and plateaus. You can't continue increasing autophagy because it can only eat the bad cells. We don't want it eating the good cells, obviously. But isn't that amazing? So even if you only got to 16 hours, that would be great. If you could get to 18 hours and go to 1 o'clock and not 11 a.m., for instance, on the schedule we talked about, let's get that human growth hormone going. Let's get that autophagy going. I mean, that would be really terrific. So men versus women. I'm sorry, ladies, we get a bun wrap again. Men are better at the results. And the results they have are better with jarring effect, like no flow kind of ways of going about this. Like they can do an OMAD, a 24-hour extended fast. They can do every other day. They can do whatever they want to do. And their body likes it when it's brutal. And they think it's because when we were hunter-gatherers and the hunters, the men would have to go out and hunt. At a moment's notice, they had to be able to sit in the bush for, in the outback out there, and they needed to be able to sit there and not get up and look for something to eat and wait for the, whatever, to walk past and be able to take down a woolly mammoth or whatever. So their bodies adapted to being able to produce the ketones and the energy that they needed without carrying. I doubt they had Werther's caramels in their pockets and sacks of almonds that they carried around from Whole Foods. It's like they had to be able to do this. So the men benefit from skipping breakfast and an occasional day to like do whatever. And their human growth hormone goes up to 20 times starting on day 3 of intermittent fasting, not day 3 of straight fasting, but starting day 3. So if they have it anywhere from 3 to 24 weeks that they can do OMAD 24, everything, their human growth hormone goes up 20 times starting on day 3, 2,000%. Their weight loss, well, I should say the weight loss goes up, but their weight goes down 3 to 8%. And they're burning 0.7 pounds, almost 3/4 of pounds of fat, just fat a day. Yeah, men burn a lot of fat very quickly. because you got to get up and run out of the outback and chase down that woolly mammoth whenever he decides to stroll by. But here's the kicker. For men, they get more of those results initially, and then it kind of drops off. Now, women, they do much better with a flow. All right. So they don't do well when you do these jarring bouts of today I'm going to do this and tomorrow I'm going to do that and I'm going to do every other day. I changed my mind. I'm going to do a 36-hour because the scale's not budging. That does not work for women. We do better on an 18-6 schedule with a known number of OMADs, maybe a couple 36-hour EAPs going on, so that they're able to take in their 3 to 24 week cycle. Their human growth hormone only goes up 13 times to 1,300% starting later in day 5. So men, they get 20 times from day 3, which is 2,000%. We get from day 5 only 13% or 1,300%. Our weight goes down 2 to 7% during that time, and up to half a pound a day of fat. Now that's still not something to sneeze at. If you are doing intermittent fasting and you're losing a half a pound a day, that is 3.5 pounds of fat a week. In a month, you could lose 15, 16 pounds easily if you're doing it the right way. It's just math. But here is the bonus on our side, ladies. We lose more weight over time, even though less initially, we lose more weight over time. And the reason why our bodies preserve fat more is because we bear children. And if we're left behind in the cave and Grok's out there fighting, fighting off the saber-toothed tiger and going after the woolly mammoth, we have to be able to survive without anything jarring. We need to preserve the fat on our bodies. We're feeding children with our bodies. We're caring for a lot of, being pregnant or feeding a child. And because we have to breastfeed, we need a lot of fat to be able to do that. It takes a lot of fat tissue to breastfeed. And we can't just melt away like the men can. So by a flow, I mean maintaining an unchanging high quality calories throughout your day. So if you're on an 18-6 and not an every other day, you're not just dropping food off on the corner like we're not dealing with food today. You're going to have this flow of high quality calories at each one of your fasting and eating windows, not all day long. That's not what I'm saying. What it means is you want to have a nice, even flow of your schedule. What's really great is a lot of times you hear that people lose their fat and it comes right back, and that the fat cells just flatten out and they lose all the water in them. And as soon as you turn your back, those fat cells plump up again, that once they're there, they're always there. That is a myth. That's a lie. What happens is when your body dips into your adipose fat stores and peels off a shelf of fat stores and decides to burn it up and make fuel for you, that is a permanent fat loss. If it is done precisely and intentionally, you can't just randomly be doing things. Intermittent fasting is intentional. You're making plans and, ladies, making sure we have high quality calories on either side of our eating windows. So here's some lifestyle benefits. There's a lot of things. When I have a fasting schedule, I look forward to a lot of great projects. I get better sleep because you're following that circadian rhythm. You're not eating with a clock hanging there. Say, oh, it's noon, I got to have lunch. Or, oh, geez, it's 6 o'clock and I haven't had dinner. The clock can make you very hungry. I have gone to the extent of throwing a tea towel over the front of my kitchen clocks and putting stickers and Post-its over the clocks that are everywhere in a kitchen. On the refrigerator, there's one. On the stove, there's one. On the microwave, there's one. We have clocks everywhere. I take off my Fitbit. I mean, I just divorce myself from any clock that there is. I even turn it off on my phone, that little, clock app that shows the time at all times in your face. And I just ignore time because I'm not eating on any kind of schedule. And I have all kinds of increased productivity that way. It renews a relationship with food that it's fuel. And you're breaking up any kind of carb addictions that you used to have for carbohydrates. You even have improved workouts. Fasting workouts are phenomenal. It takes advantage of something called mTOR. Not going to get into it. It's real wonky kind of stuff. But if you want to know how to have better workouts that have better results for you, there's a slide near the end that tells you how to get in touch with me so that we can discuss that for you. So if you're a client and you wanted to know that, let me know. We'll bring it up at your next session. So let's talk a little bit about how to talk to your doctor about intermittent fasting, because you're going to get an earful depending on your doctor, depending on what kind of education this person had, what generation they are, what cultural background they have. It could be dicey. So first, let's talk about when you should see a doctor. There are valid reasons to see a doctor when you start to change your eating habits and incorporate fasting into your life. So if you have you need a medical record of your weight. You need to have a number that is your weight for your medical record. You have not been weighed at your doctor's for a really long time and you've been relying on your bathroom scale. Okay, you need a medical record of your weight. Go on and get that done. If you want some accountability, so every 3 months when you go back to see your doctor, like if you're seeing a diabetes doctor, you're seeing your primary care physician, or you're going in to see them about a rheumatology visit or whatever it is, there's that accountability there. Like, hey, you weighed 140 the last time you're in. This says 158. Oh, what's the deal? So there's that accountability. Now, my clients have accountability with me on a weekly basis. I get their numbers, then they put the scale away. They don't go back to it again, but my clients have that accountability. If you're not a client of mine, either consider being a client or finding somebody, if not me, somebody that can be your accountability person, whether it's a coach, your sister, a coworker, who wants to do a challenge with you or whatever it would be. Get some accountability going. It is incredible for not only your weight, but your health goals as well. Now, if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or another disease that requires you to have medications and follow-up care, you should get a nod from your doctor that this is okay. Like the disclaimer I said in the beginning, I am not telling you to blow off your doctor and just go do your thing. No. If you have any kind of chronic health issues, especially having to do with your heart or diabetes, please get the permission of your doctor or inform them or something so they know what's going on with you. So here's a suggested way of bringing it up to your doctor. Doctor, I've been eating 3 times a day instead of 5 times a day for the last 2 weeks. It's great. I've lost 4 pounds and my blood sugar tests have been much closer to normal. How do I know when I need to adjust my metformin? So you give them the good news first. You're like, hey, I've been eating 3 times a day instead of 5. So what are you doing? You're just skipping snacking. Okay. This is an intermittent fasting. You are simply removing all those snackadoos from your life, where it's that 22 hash marks on the page where you're eating constantly and you've got it down to 3 times a day. I know, revolutionary thought, but go back to just 3 squares a day, right? And I've dropped a little weight. My blood sugar tests look good. How do I know when it's time to? So he knows that you are, or she knows that you are making some efforts to fix your metabolic health. Wonderful. It's exactly what they should be wanting you to do. All doctors would love this. And they'll let you know if your blood sugars get too low in the morning, if you feel dizzy or whatever those things are. He'll tell you, I've had to get off metformin. I know what the signs are, but for everybody it could be a little bit different. So I'm not going to talk about side effects of drugs. That's way outside of my pay grade. So how to talk to your doctor again. So you're talking to them about intermittent fasting. The other one was just like, I'm skipping snacking, right? Be prepared to hear from most doctors that fasting is a fad. Now, after this presentation, you know it's been around for millennia. It's the oldest form of taking care of yourself. It's not a fad. In fact, it's going back to something very ancient. Just be clear with them that you're talking about timed eating windows, not about starving yourself. You're talking about timed eating, intentional windows in which you eat and don't eat food in between. Now, most doctors, bless their hearts, only get around 20 hours, not days, not weeks, not months, 20 hours of total training in nutrition and weight management. Most of them feel that weight loss is not real medicine. They feel that should be left up to Weight Watchers or me or somebody else or Noom, give it off to someone who is a pseudo medical person, get it off to that person over there or to that program or to that book. Just, it's not for me. Calories in, calories out, blah, blah, eat less, move more, blah, blah. Basically, that's all of their education in a nutshell. Do not talk to them about carb restriction. Their heads might blow off. You have to be careful with how you talk to your doctor because you don't want to deceive your doctor at all. You want to tell them what's going on. What I'm talking about is there's a lot of people, and maybe this is just because I come from LA, but there's a lot of people talking about eliminating carbs, and your doctor's head will blow off. It's like, yeah, you need to eat carbs. It's like, well, your body makes 30 grams through gluconeogenesis, but okay. But they're not going to want you to cut an entire piece, a big chunk of a nutritional type to a macronutrient and get rid of it altogether. They want to hear something a little bit more balanced. So you say that you are limiting processed carbohydrates and sugars, which is what you're doing. You're adding in good omega-3 fats. That's what you're doing on my program anyway. It's something you should be doing. You're stopping all your snacking. You're not going to be, macking down 22 times a day. You're having good quality food sourcing like grass-fed and finished and pasture-raised meats and poultry. They're going to love all of that. And as part of that effort, you are compressing your time windows. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes. This is from Jason Fung. Would you ask your plumber to remove your wisdom teeth? Would you ask your barista to check your vision? No. So don't ask your doctor to deal with weight loss. They don't think it is real medicine. This comes from a doctor. It cracks me up. I think it's a great quote. So here's the steps to take to intermittent fasting. So you want to start implementing IF in your health regimen. Well, number one, check with your doctor. Remember that list if you're one of those people who's on medication for heart disease or diabetes, or you're underweight, or whatever that reason is. Check with your doctor if you meet the criteria as a good candidate for intermittent fasting. Remember, not fasting, intermittent fasting, eating windows where you eat quality food within that eating window. And work with your health coach. If not me, somebody, whoever the person is that's guiding you, to establish fat adaptation and implement IF slowly and intentionally. If you speed up and you're not fat adapted yet, and you're not burning ketones for fuel, and your body hasn't stopped craving carbs, intermittent fasting is going to be hell for you. It is going to be a very hard road. How do I know? Because I didn't know the first thing about fat adaptation when I tried intermittent fasting the first time, and I cried for a week of trying to do intermittent fasting in different eating windows. I made the mistake of switching every 3 seconds, different kind of windows I was going to do. And it really took a toll on my body. It was a lot of stress. Once fat adaptation was explained to me from Megan Ramos over at Jason Fung's offices, and their whole fasting program that they had, then it became a lot easier because my body's then producing all kinds of ketones all the time. My carb cravings were down and I was able to follow that. So if you're not with a health coach now and you want to talk to me, that would be great. So is intermittent fasting a good solution for you and your health, wellness conditions and goals? Well, it's free to find out. DM me down below, leave a comment, say contact me, and we'll get you an assessment to find out if and how this would be good for you and how to implement it in your life. I'd love everyone listening to be able to take advantage of that. So now we can ask away. We'll see who is left here. Let's jump back, stop our share. And there's Ms. Irma. Hello. You can unmute if you have any questions, Ms. Irma.
I don't really have any questions tonight. It's just explained a lot of things to me. The one thing that I am wondering though, with my coffee that I like in the morning, is every sip a hash mark?
Well, what do you put in your coffee? Do you put any carbs in your coffee?
I put cream in it.
Straight up cream is fine. For the type of fat adaptation that you're on, that is a 0 carb calorie that is not disrupting you at all. You're getting
Good.
great fat adaptation going, and your carb cravings have gone way down, haven't they?
Almost non-existent.
I have been trying to meet Irma now for what, 14 years or something. Our sons are best of friends and brothers. Her son Wayne is like my 4th child. And he just blended right into all of us. He's a great guy. And they've been trying to get the moms together forever. So we finally got to meet each other a couple months ago out at Caroline's house. If those of you who don't know, Irma is Caroline's mother-in-law, the lucky duck. And Caroline's amazing. And Caroline's lucky to have you big time. But she said, Sheila, I don't know, I'm going to get started, but I am such a big carb addict. I'm a carb addict. It's a problem. I'm a carb addict. And I was like, it's okay. You're like, I don't know. And it's just so heartwarming to hear just a few, 4 weeks in.
Probably.
Yeah. And it's like pretty much a non-issue.
Yeah.
It's controllable. I mean, I'm always going to want a bran muffin. That was like my jam, is having a toasted bran muffin slathered with butter in the morning. That was my thing. Or an English muffin slathered with peanut butter. I mean, I am not going to not want that. For the rest, it's because it's good. It's delicious. Does it mean I'm never going to eat it again? No, because the thing that makes Primal different from keto is on keto, you have to continue to do that style of eating for the rest of your live long days. Primal is different. Once you're past the halfway point, like Caroline is, she may be over 40 pounds this week. That would be so cool. Unbelievable, wonderful progress. But she's super fat adapted. And now she's starting to add calories back in to where she could be metabolically flexible. And I've been doing that now for a year. I have up to 100 grams of carbs a day. Now I stay away from processed carbs. I have root vegetables and quinoa and good stuff. But on my birthday, I ate whatever I wanted to. And you know what? It didn't taste all that good. The cake was like too sugary and I felt bad. Patrick had done all kinds of stuff. And I can still have it. I can still do those things, but your taste buds change. That what tastes good to you changes. And the difference is I don't crave them. You know, if I have some regular chocolate, it doesn't mean the next day I'm swimming through a bag of, Reese's Pieces or something. I'm not bathing myself in Hershey's chocolate out of the can. You can enjoy it and have it in its place and as it was meant to be, which are occasional things, which is really cool. I talked to a gal today at my doctor's office and I talked to 2 different gals and one gal said, I don't know, I just couldn't give up carbs for the rest of my life. And I said, who's giving up carbs for the rest of your life? And she's like, really? So we got to get the word out that you can go back to having, pretty much a normal life, which makes it permanent weight loss. If you can go back to a normal life in the course of getting to your goal, it's cool. And I'm just looking at you, Irma. I'm telling you, I can tell how much weight you've lost just from looking at you. Like your shoulders are real sharp and like right here and all underneath here. You're looking great.
Thank you. I'm feeling good too.
Good. Was there anything else in the presentation that was a real aha for you? Something that you're interested to know?
The autophagy was very interesting to hear that defined.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a whole lot more sense. But I think the rest of it seemed to be things that we have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any real surprises there.
Good.
It did explain a lot of the 18-6 and what the different hours were with the process. So, and that's kind of, I was looking for that and I didn't know what to expect tonight. So I got exactly what I was looking for and more.
Well, great.
So it was good. It was
Yeah.
good.
Men can just drop all that weight too. It's like, oh, but that now explains to me why it's so easy for men to drop weight when they're on a diet.
Right.
But women keep it off longer and they can go longer on a diet and have more discipline about it. I think it's part of our DNA in a modern society is we're supposed to be on diets all the time kind of thing. But I'm looking forward to the fact that I'm never going to have to diet again in my life. It's done. That is such a relief. It's such a relief. Because in the back of my brain, when I've been on other diets, you're making plans for when you're not on it anymore. And a big question I get often is there a cheat day? Do I get a cheat day? Which is a big part of keto. Like you can have this big cheat day. And it's like, no, there's no cheat day. And people look at me like I have 5 eyeballs. I'm like, what do you mean there's no cheat day? All right, hon. That's
Why would
everything
you
for
cheat
tonight.
on your
Then, if you have
health?
no other questions, we're good. And it's a
Marlboro
chemistry
Man
experiment
with
why
a
put that stuff
sandwich
in
in his hand. I don't know.
It's good to see you too. And I'll see you again tomorrow.
Well,
I
I'm glad
think.
you got some answers on that. So
On
it
Thursday.
answered your
Okay.
questions on all what those eating windows were and everything.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
excellent.
it did.
My clients are so smart. I'm telling you. And they also have to go through this very rigorous education process. Everybody tells me this is way more education than I thought it would. A lot more studying than I thought it would be. But there's a lot to learn about how our bodies really work. And I think that knowledge is power. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody, on Reboot TV. This has been Tuesday Talks with Intermittent Fasting. My name is Sheila Kilty for the Optimal Health Reboot and the Mind Body Reboot Method. Have a good night. See you next time.